Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this is a story about a position I was placed as Senior T-38 Senior Flight Examiner at the Air Force Flight Test Center, giving a checkout check ride to the new Vice Commandant of the Test Pilot School. Now, this was about probably 1978, as you can see. This was a long time ago. I'm a very young individual there. And Edwards Air Force Base, this was the actual sign back in the 70s, very historic in a museum now. It's featured in the movie The Right Stuff, but this was our sign. And things out at Edwards were, or could be, very brutal for new pilots checking out. And talking to some of the old timers, it's nothing new. It was a brutal place to be a pilot for a long time. You were not given any slack, let me tell you. The whole thing could be brutal. Well, the Air Force Test Pilot School is getting a new Vice Commandant. And he is a Navy pilot, a commander, which is equivalent of an Air Force lieutenant colonel. And he's going to be the Vice Commandant of the Test Pilot School. So part of his duties involve being able to fly the T-38 and being an instructor in the T-38. Now, he was a Navy pilot. He had never flown a T-38 before. So they put him in the back seat of the T-38 and they give him 2 flights. Now, he's never flown an ILS before, and he's typically not flared an aircraft, and he has very little time flying from the back seat of the T-38. I mean, he's got like 2 flights. Now, this guy was a very experienced test pilot, and he was a great choice for the Commandant of the Test Pilot School. He had a lot of credibility. He had been involved in the F-14 spin tests. He had been involved in the A7 spin tests, and we had a lot of interesting little discussions after everything was over about some of his experiences. But flying the back seat in the back seat of an aircraft can be very difficult. You don't have the forward visibility. The F4 is a pretty bad example. Anybody who's flown the back seat knows that when you're coming around the final turn, of course, you can see the runway. When you roll out on final and you look to either side and you can't see the runway, that's good because it means you're lined up with it. You have virtually no forward visibility. The F-104 was about the same. Now, I had a little bit better forward visibility through the front of the windscreen, but still, the visibility was poor. There was a lot of looking off to the side, back and forth, kind of like flying my Great Lakes biplane where I can't see forward very well. But anyway, okay, we're in the T-38. Now, the T-38, same issues. Not very good forward visibility. Okay. So we're going up for a check ride, and we have a standard profile we do on the check ride, and we do several things. We do first of all just your basic contact type patterns, overhead patterns, and we do some instrument work. It was kind of a combined check ride, getting him fully qualified on the T-38. And like I said, they're sitting in the back seat. Your forward visibility isn't great. You have to look a lot to the side. This is what it looks like from the back seat, and it's kind of deceptive because you can see the windscreen there, and it looks like you can see a lot. And yeah, you can see a lot, but you see, I'm in kind of a bank there looking at, that's not actually a run, that's actually what they used for the C-17 and the YC-15. Actually, it was YC-14 and 15 at the time where they're doing unimproved landing tests. So it's a dirt runway there, but you see, I'm in a bank. I'm in the back seat here taking this picture. I'm in a bank to kind of see it. When you roll out there, you can't see it very well at all. And part of the issue with this whole thing was also that the visibility from the back seat is very restricted. And we were in the traffic pattern there, and he got a little too close to another aircraft. You kind of have to use special techniques to make sure you're clear, and sometimes you have to maneuver the aircraft just a little bit to make sure you can clear the path where you're going. And of course, he's responsible for being an instructor, being the pilot in command, so he needs to be fully in command of the aircraft and make sure that he adequately clears. Well, unfortunately, we were getting very close to another aircraft in the pattern, and I had to take the aircraft and break out of the pattern. Gave it back to him. We re-entered. We flew a couple of ILS's instrument landing systems, and they were, yeah, they were passable, but they were really marginal. But Edwards does not get a lot of weather, and we one time had a weather recall due to rain and 11,000-foot ceiling. And I go, you're kidding. We're having a weather recall due to rain and a ceiling that's at 11,000 feet, even though we had ILS approaches and that. And they said yes, because typically in the desert, you get these little flash floods, and the nav aids tend to flood, and then they go offline. So if you have a good rainstorm out at Edwards and a flash flood like that, you can lose all your nav aids at the time. This is well before GPS, okay? So that's why they had the recall. But okay, I digress here. Anyway, being a Navy guy, he's not used to flying ILSs, and they're not very good. Okay, this is a very pitch-sensitive aircraft. And the landings, okay, this guy isn't used to flaring, so the landings were a little bit of a disaster. All right. Well, I'm faced with debriefing the commandant of the test pilot school and possibly busting him on the ride. And there's a lot of ego involved in here. He was a very humble guy. I mean, for his flying ability, which was, I assume to be great. He had a great background. He was a very humble individual, and I thought, well, this could be difficult. So I brought the operations officer. He's kind of third in command, in the chain of command. You got the commandant, the vice commandant, and the ops officer. So I brought him on the debriefing, and I went thoroughly through the debriefing, and I said, Commander, I'm going to give you a qualified 2. It's you pass the check ride, but I want you to get 2 more instructional flights, because basically they were not fair to this guy. They threw him, they're throwing him into the briar patch there. Give a guy who's never flown the T-38 at all, and they throw him in the back seat and give him 2 rides and set him up for a check ride. I mean, come on, this was just not the way you treat people. And then they throw him up with the auspices of, he could have something on his flight records that does not look good. And to be the vice commandant on the test pilot school and to have a bust is not good. So I felt pretty bad about it. He was, we had a very respectful debrief, and then he and the ops officer left. And I'm sitting there feeling kind of bad about this whole thing, because this just wasn't right for him. This wasn't, fair. He got a raw deal here. And the ops officer, who I knew fairly well, my office actually, Stanivel, was in the test pilot school, so all these people were just down the hall from me. Okay, so the ops officer comes back a couple of minutes later, and he can see that I'm feeling bad about this. I mean, we knew each other well enough. And he kind of smiles and says, "Don't worry about it." He says, the commander says that he couldn't believe that I didn't bust him on the ride, and he was very grateful that I gave him a pass with training, and he says we'll make sure he gets appropriate additional training and he's up to speed. And I said, okay, thank you very much. I feel good, because like I said, Edwards can be brutal. It's not fair to the pilots, and he doesn't need this stuff on his record, because they were kind of treating him poorly. And I'm really surprised that they treated him so poorly to give him just a couple of rides like that. The ops officer wasn't in the loop on his checkout, or he would have done something about it too. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting and informative, and thanks for watching.